Good morning, everyone.
Good morning, Rabbi.
We're learning Mishna Yevamos, Perek Zion, chapter 7, Mishna Beis, Mishna 2. Okay. In the previous Mishnayos, we're talking about the halacha of a woman who is not permitted to be married to a Kohen. And the question was, in that situation, if she brings in slaves, we know that a woman, we're going to learn soon, if a woman brings slaves into her marriage to a Kohen, the same way she could eat, the slaves can eat. Previous Mishnah discussed what happens if, let's say, that marriage is forbidden. Now, our Mishnah is talking about the actual halacha, the actual law about this. Bas Yisrael shenisas l'kohen, a daughter of Yisrael, meaning the daughter of a non-Kohen, whether it's Yisrael, whether it's a Levi, shenisas l'kohen, she married a Kohen. A woman who marries a Kohen eats truma. Her husband can feed her truma. She's allowed to eat truma. And she brought slaves into the marriage. Bein avdei malug, bein avdei tzoin barzal, whether they are the slaves of malug or the slaves of tzoin barzal. Now, as we said previously, there are two types of ownership, two types of properties, so to speak, that a woman can bring into marriage. There's a malug, which means that she is the owner of the actual property while the husband has the rights of usage. And then there's tzoin barzal, which means that she brings in certain properties, such as real estate or servants, into the marriage. And if the marriage ever gets terminated through divorce or through his death, she gets the original price of these things she brought into the marriage, no matter whether they're even gone, or which would be to her gain, or to her loss if they went up in price. She's only going to get what they were worth at the time of the marriage. And as we said, the ones that fall under the category of tzon barzal, which is how the husband has to pay her for the value that they were when they got married, no matter what, we said that because of his responsibility to replace them, they're considered like they're his. So therefore, the Mishnah says, Bein avdei malug, bein avdei tzon barzal, either type of servant, harei elu yoichle b'truma, they are allowed to eat truma. If we're talking about the case of tzon barzal, where he has to replace it no matter what, we consider them like his. And therefore, if they're his, he feeds them truma. But the point is that even by avdei malug, even by the malug servants, which are essentially hers, just that he has usage of them, we still say that they can eat truma. Because there is, based on a verse in the Torah, we learn that the same way the Kohen can feed his wife truma, her servants can also be fed truma. Meaning, if she can eat truma, her servants can eat truma. And therefore, the Aydin Malug, which are essentially hers, because she owns them. You know, if the marriage were to be terminated, she would take them with her, because they're actually hers. He just has usage of them. But she could take them back. Even though they're actually her servants and not his, nonetheless, the same way the Kohen's wife eats truma, the Kohen's wife's servants can also eat truma. So that's the case of when a daughter of a non-Kohen marries a Kohen. Now, the halacha is, if a Kohen's daughter marries a non-Kohen, can she eat truma? The answer is no. She cannot eat truma. Once she's completely married, according to Torah law, even if she's betrothed, she could still eat truma. Midrabanan, at some point, it became that she couldn't. But once there's chuppah, once she's fully married to the non-Kohen, she can't eat truma anymore, no matter what. She goes home to her father for Shabbos, he can't give her truma. So now, ubas kohen shenisas liYisrael. Now you have the daughter of a Kohen who married a Yisrael, married a non-Kohen. V'chnisa loy bein avdei malug bein avdei tzon barzal, and she brought into the marriage for him, whether it be servants of malug or servants of tzon barzal, harei elu lo yoichlu b'truma. The halacha is these servants may not eat truma. The maluk servants may not eat truma because so let's back up. Let's go the other way first. The tzon barzal servants, the ones that the husband has to replace, they are not going to eat truma because since the husband is not a Kohen, and they are considered like his servants because he has to replace them no matter what, in case the marriage terminates. So they're his servants, but he's not a Kohen. So of course he can't feed them truma. The daughter of the Kohen who married the Yisrael, the Maluk servants, although they are hers, But the point is, the same way once she got married to this non-Kohen, she can't eat truma, her servants can't eat truma either. So therefore, the halacha is that in the case of the daughter of the Kohen who marries the Yisrael, and she brings in servants, none of those servants will be permitted to eat truma. Okay, now, excuse me. So the Chofetz Chaim had covered a situation where you're hearing Lashon Hara from someone you believe like two witnesses, or someone who was Mesiach Lefi Tumai. He kind of mentioned it, in passing. That wasn't his intention to actually give that report. The whole point was just for the sake of I just kind of, offhand mentioned it. And in both cases, we say that doesn't give you any kind of license to believe the Lashon Hara. So now the Chofetz Chaim talks about the following. Meish alav devarim hanikarim. Let's say there's evidence. There's evidence. Shenira al yedei zeh shema shemesaprin alav hu emes. That through this evidence, through this kind of proofs, it would seem that what's being said about this person is true. You don't have witnesses about it, because there's no witnesses here. And there's no power of witnesses here. But the point is, though, that there's evidence. Dina hachi, the halacha is like this. If this matter that the Lashon Hara is about, even if it's true, you can give the person the benefit of the doubt to say he didn't realize, let's say, that it was wrong. Or whether it's, again, a lack of qualities, or other things that we said before, that there is really no right to mention them. There's no purpose of mentioning them whatsoever. It doesn't help the fact you have any kind of evidence. So you have evidence that he did it. But what's the difference if he did it? Even if he did it, you should be giving him the benefit of the doubt. So therefore, you should not be accepting this Lashon Hara as something derogatory, because we're not allowed to accept that. We're not allowed to allow a person to be considered derided in our eyes when it shouldn't be so. But if, let's say, there's no way to find any kind of reason to say that what he did, he didn't realize, then if there's evidence, then again, it would be permitted to believe it and to accept it. And then he adds in a footnote, one has to be very, very careful to make sure that the evidence is real evidence. Like, don't talk it into yourself that it's evidence. Be very truthful to yourself. Yetzer Hara likes very much to try to influence a person to say, oh, this is really good evidence, really good proof, to get you to accept it. And therefore, before you decide that because of the evidence, you're allowed now to be able to accept it and to believe it, which again, we said even that is limited. You can't go ahead and hurt him for it. You can't go and tell other people about it. That's what we had before. You can't do that in this case, I believe. But the point is, though, that even regarding to believing it for whatever purposes you can believe it, you want to stay away from the person. You want to tell his Rebbe that they should stay away from him, whatever it may be. Nonetheless, and you want to say, well, there's evidence to it. Be very, very careful to make sure that the evidence is really considered, we'll call it kosher evidence about this person. Have a wonderful day and a wonderful Shabbos.